Hey, my friends, this is Matt. It's a 10-minute Bible hour, and my truck got stolen. Not recently. This is a couple of years ago. My truck got stolen. It wasn't the perfect truck or anything, but I saved up money for it, and I liked it. I thought it was beautiful. And then you had a back seat. It was big enough for the kids to be in there. I could do work with it and stuff, and listen to the radio in there, and the windows all worked and rolled down. I liked my truck a lot. Somebody stole my truck out of my driveway. I went to bed one night. I locked everything up the way I would normally lock everything up. And somewhere in the night, I just vaguely remember hearing a little bit of noise outside the window. And we've got deer and wildlife in the town where we live. So I thought, oh, there's probably some deer clomping around by the window or leaning up against a part of the house that's a little bit warmer to be out of the wind. I mean, that stuff happens. And so you talk yourself out of it because you want to stay in bed and sleep. And I got up in the morning, I walked out there, and there's no truck. And I went back inside. I was like, hey, anybody, see the truck? Has anybody seen that lately? And they kind of laughed. I was like, nah, I think it got stolen. Then sure enough, it got stolen, and you got to go through all the rigmarole with the cops and everything else. And they were busy. And so I went into this private investigator mode and went all around the neighborhood. Anybody who had a doorbell or a camera, and asked them for footage. And sure enough, I found them. I saw them stealing my truck. I saw them driving my truck away. I looked all over the place to try to find my truck, and about a week later, it turned up just destroyed, having been in a couple of accidents and having a ton of additional miles on it. And it smelled like, I don't know, I'm not very good at drugs. I'm just not very experienced. I like to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but it smelled like cronk or dank or whatever the kids are eating or smoking these days in there. And I was like, man, that's never getting out of the fabric. This is disgusting. And so then insurance paid me some money. It wasn't that good a deal. And then that was the end of the stolen truck thing. Anytime you deal with that kind of a theft, there's the sense of violation and everything, but there's also the sense of, if I could go back on that night and just lurk and wait for them, I'd have bear spray in both hands. I would just hose those guys. And they'd be crying, puking up barf and begging for me to turn off the bear spray. And I'd be like, I'll turn it off, but first you have to promise not to steal my truck anymore. And they'd be like, we're super, super, super sorry. We won't steal your truck anymore. And then I'd be like, all right, no more bear spray for you. You guys go home, you rascals. But of course, I did not know they were going to steal my truck that night. And so I thought I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared, and my truck got stolen. And here I am, over 2 years later, still telling the story, because that's the kind of thing that sticks with a man. Well, likewise, here in Matthew 24, verses, 42 through 44, we get the first of a whole bunch of parables that Jesus is going to offer to clarify what he was talking about earlier in Matthew 24. And this parable is about kind of that scenario. Somebody in the parable owns a place, and if they knew when somebody was going to break in and steal stuff, they'd be super ready. But because you don't know when people are going to steal stuff, usually you're not super ready when they do. And the passage goes like this. Therefore, keep watch, this is Jesus talking, because you don't know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you don't expect him. The idea here, then, is that Jesus is tapping in to that cautionary tale part of the human experience where if somebody gives you a warning, but you've never really been burned by that thing, you're like, okay, I've been advised. That's cool. Thanks for giving me the heads up. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. Thank you. But once you have been burned by that thing, wow, do you ever learn your lesson? It sticks with you permanently. Hey guys, if you understand emotionally what this does to your brain, this mistake of not being ready on something as trivial as having your stuff that you can't really eternally keep anyway taken from you in the night, how much more so if you know generally when the Son of Man is going to show up, if you've been generally tipped off that is coming, how much more so would it make sense to be at the ready, because you wouldn't want to miss that. You would want to be prepared for that arrival the same way, though in kind of a reverse moral fashion, the way you would definitely want to be prepared and alert if you had an inkling that the truck thief was coming that night. You would want to have your eyes open. And I think this parable just underscores what really has been the theme of all of Matthew 24. I mean, think about it. If you go back and look closely at Matthew 24, you notice pretty quickly there isn't really much of anything that you are told to do that the disciples are told to do. There's no thing like, hey, guys, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. There's going to be all this stuff that the world kingdom is going to do. Make sure it does that. Definitely vote for wars and rumors of wars and vote for nations rising against nations and for famines and stuff, because that'll make things come faster. Make sure you do something to advocate for that. No, he's just saying that's just what's going to happen no matter what you do or how you vote or if you don't vote. You'll notice that he doesn't say, like, go out and make sure you get persecuted, because, if you do that, then we're just getting that much closer. So go pick a fight. Make sure that that's happening. You'll notice that he doesn't go out and say, like, hey, you should hire somebody to profane the temple. Like, just give him a bunch of money and have him do it, or like wear one of those goofy mustaches or something so nobody can tell it was you, and then you profane the temple, because we got to prime the pump. We got to get this thing going toward like the end times and the return of the Son of Man. Like, everybody has a role to play here. Let's make these events unfold. You'll notice that Jesus doesn't say, like, hey, make sure you go out and point to false messiahs and be like, oh, there he is. He's out in the desert. Like, somebody's supposed to say this before the Son of Man can come back. So I figured it'd be me to kind of hurry things along. No, there's no action plan for any of this other than, let's just be honest, a little bit of self-preservation. The only thing in that first big chunk of his answer to the disciples about what are going to be the signs of the coming of the end of the age, his only real practical make sure to do this advice is like, hey, if you see the actual temple profaning thing, the abomination that causes desolation that the prophet Daniel was mentioning, like, if you registered that that's what's going on there, you might want to just hustle out of town. Like, you might want to get going for sure. And also, like, don't fall for it when people inaccurately say that the Messiah is here or there. That's it. There isn't really anything proactive that you're supposed to go do to make these things happen. So then if Jesus isn't giving them anything that they actually have to do to make all these things unfold, that means that this unfolding is going to happen external to them, and by proxy, external to the decisions and actions of all the kingdom citizens who come after them, i.e. you and me. So if there's nothing that the disciples or future kingdom citizens are supposed to do to make all of these events that Jesus points to happen, and if there's nothing that kingdom citizens are supposed to do to make the Son of Man appear on the clouds, as it says in verse 30 of Matthew 24, then why is Jesus telling anybody any of this? Why even bother? Well, because I do think there is one proactive thing you're supposed to do, but it's not so much an action as it is an orientation. And that orientation is readiness. It is an embracing of this notion of history and an optimism and an urgency that comes from knowing that these things are going to go down and the Son of Man is going to return. Jesus is saying, be ready, be alert, so that you're attentive. And whatever that means in the moment when the Son of Man returns, again, he says in verse 42, therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. And that has implications in terms of our orientation toward life. And go all the way back to the beginning of Matthew. What are we seeing with the teachings of Jesus? You got world kingdom values that are based on one set of assumptions about life, death, the unfolding of history, the narrative of everything, government power, all of that stuff. Then you got another kingdom, another set of values, the real kingdom, the kingdom that Jesus is talking about and that he is king over. And that one is based on an entirely different set of assumptions about life and death and age and love and virtue and value and what currencies matter and eternity and all of that. These two assumptions, one, you're born, you convert food and drink to poop and pee, and you sleep and you do some more work and you get older and then you die and get what you can while you're at it, is going to produce a very different orientation toward existence than the truer, realer kingdom orientation, which is, yeah, you're born and you convert the energy and the relationships and the resources you have in this world into something that is far more meaningful, that being the glory of God and the eternal redemptive plan that you as kingdom citizens are invited to be a part of. You see, they're just completely different trajectories for life and existence. And so if you embrace all of those kingdom value things that Jesus is talking about, but you still embrace the world kingdom assumptions about the unfolding of time and where it's all going and how the story works, well, then you're not really fully in on the kingdom stuff, because you might embrace like some nice virtues and like turn the other cheek and stuff here and there. But in terms of your grand view of where all of the history of everything and everyone ever is headed, that's going to be pretty naturalistic if you're still embracing the world system. Jesus seems to be pulling the curtain back just enough to be like, no, part of living with a kingdom perspective is knowing that there is more realization to this kingdom yet to come, and what seems like it's forever and unchanging about the state of the world right now isn't actually. There are dramatic changes still to come, and the reality of the truer, greater, realer kingdom is going to be made much more manifest over time. Therefore, keep watch, because you don't know on what day your Lord will come. It doesn't look to me like what we're getting in Matthew 24 is a whole bunch of do this or do that to steer history in a certain direction. It seems like that's God the Father's job, and he knows the timeline on that. It seems like the job of the kingdom citizen who wants to be in and a part of all of this is to be aware that this is the larger narrative. It's not naturalistic. It's supernaturalistic in terms of the unfolding of history. And you want to be ready for it because it orients you the right way toward keeping the values of the kingdom and the king himself in focus with what you do, with your resources, with your life, with your time while you're here. I don't think we should be quite done with this little micro parable about the homeowners and thieves and stuff yet. We're going to revisit one more theme that I think pops up in here tomorrow. Hopefully every little bit of this is bringing this somewhat challenging chapter more and more into focus as we get deeper into it. Jesus is giving us parables now because he wants us to get it and thinks we can get it and wants to simplify to help us out. So I'm optimistic we can get it, and we'll work on it more mañana. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.